This is Nightly Business Report with Tyler Matheson and Sue Herrera.
Pulling the plug, Republicans decide not to hold a vote this week on a measure to repeal the Affordable Care Act, and healthcare stocks rise. Sports scandal, the multi-billion-dollar college basketball industry is rocked by an alleged bribery scheme, highlighting the big money behind college athletics. Robot revolution, machines are playing a bigger role in investing your money. But is that a good thing? Those stories and more tonight on Nightly Business Report for Tuesday, September 26th. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sue Herrera. Tyler Matheson is on assignment tonight. We begin in Washington, where there will be no vote on the Republican effort to overhaul the healthcare system. Majority Leader Mitch McConnell met with lawmakers today after Senator Collins late yesterday said that she could not support the Graham-Cassidy bill. The decision not to take the measure to the floor this week was because the votes simply were not there. Now, Senator McConnell says the Republican Party is moving on.
Where we go from here is tax reform. Senator Corker and Senator Toomey have reached an agreement on the parameters of the budget resolution. The Budget Committee will be marking up next week, and we plan to move forward on our next priority, which is reforming the American tax code in a significant way for the first time in 30 years.
After that vote was scrapped, shares of the health insurance stocks rose, and hospital operators also gained on the day. Nike shares were also on the move. The world's largest sportswear brand reported a nearly 24% drop in quarterly profit after heavy discounting, but that was above forecasts, and revenue came in just about in line with estimates. Still, investors weren't really sure what to make of those results, causing the stock to pop and then drop in after-hours trading. Sarah Eisen has the one key takeaway in Nike's report.
Nike is feeling the heat. The company seeing slowing growth in its key market, North America, and fighting off fierce competition with discounts and a shift in strategy to focus more on its direct-to-consumer business, where it sells directly through its own stores and website instead of department stores and others. Results reflected the changing times, driven by a slowdown in the overall athletic apparel and sneaker market, and a resurgent Adidas, which just stole the #2 most popular brand spot in the United States from Nike's Jordan brand, according to NPD Group. Nike remains #1, and it still is the dominant player globally. Perhaps that's why it was able to flex some muscles, reporting a big profit beat on controlling expenses and showing strong performance abroad, especially in markets like China, where sales rose 12%. But Nike stock has been lagging Adidas and the broader market as consumers opt for more fashionable athleisure over performance wear. For Nike, it needs to get the cool factor back in order to excite consumers and investors again. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Sarah Eisen.
On Wall Street, the Dow recorded its first four-day losing streak since June as investors have turned cautious. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 11 points to 22,284. The Nasdaq rose 9, and the S&P 500 was up just a fraction. The CEO of Equifax is out. The company announcing this morning that Richard Smith is retiring in the wake of the massive breach that potentially impacted 143 million Americans. And his departure comes days before he was to appear on Capitol Hill. Aditi Roy is on the story for us.
Equifax announced big executive changes starting from the top. The board of directors appointed board member Mark Fiedler to serve as chairman, and 7-year veteran of Equifax Paulino Dorrego Barros Jr. was named interim CEO. Reaction was swift. Hawaii Senator Brian Schatz, a member of the Senate Banking Committee, said in a statement, "A CEO walking out the door just days before he is to appear before Congress is an abdication of his responsibility." Smith is scheduled to testify in front of Congress next week about the massive breach that affected up to 143 million Americans. An Equifax spokesperson says Smith is scheduled to testify before Congress, adding that the company will fully cooperate with Congress. Smith's departure prompted Ohio Senator Sherrod Brown, a Democrat on the Banking Committee, to ask SEC Chair Jay Clayton a question about it during a hearing on the SEC's own cyber breach.
Do you think it's appropriate, Mr. Chair, for the executives who ran the company during the massive breach that they get to retire and keep their bonuses and stock awards?
It would be inappropriate for me to comment on that specific matter. Do I believe that if executives have profited from a high stock price that's a result of failure to disclose other acts that are clearly violations of our securities laws, should there be an ability to get back those gains? Yes, I do.
In response, GOP Senator John Kennedy tweeted, "Was pleased to hear Chairman Clayton isn't ignoring the possible Equifax insider trading. The American people need answers." Equifax maintains the executives didn't know about the breach when they sold the shares. Equifax has lost more than $4.5 billion in market cap since the breach was made public. Consumer groups say Smith's departure isn't enough.
If you want another credit card, or refinance your mortgage, you're still going to have to deal with Equifax. And so they don't have that market incentive to properly serve consumers. In fact, their customers are banks and creditors and debt collectors who provide and use their information.
The company says it's starting the search for a permanent CEO. Meantime, interim CEO Mark Fiedler also issued a statement apologizing for the breach and said Equifax has formed a special committee of the board to focus on the hack. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Aditi Roy, San Francisco.
And a bit later in the program, we'll take a look at how small businesses were impacted by that breach at Equifax. President Trump plans to visit Puerto Rico next week to survey the damage from Hurricane Maria. Today, he said a lot of food and water and other supplies have been shipped to that island and that the federal government is doing what it can.
FEMA, our great first responders, and all available federal resources, including the military, are being marshaled to save lives, protect families, and begin a long and very, very difficult restoration process. I have directed all relevant departments and agencies to assist in the response and recovery effort.
One catastrophe modeling firm puts the damage from Hurricane Maria at an estimated $40 to $85 billion in insured losses, most of those in Puerto Rico. College basketball found itself in the middle of a massive scandal today. The FBI arrested 10 people on charges of fraud and corruption, including coaches, managers, financial advisors, and representatives of sportswear company Adidas. They are accused of making illicit payments in an attempt to cash in on the big money athletics can potentially generate.
For the defendants charged today, the madness of college basketball went well beyond the big dance in March. Month after month, the defendants exploited the hoop dreams of student athletes around the country, allegedly treating them as little more than opportunities to enrich themselves through bribery and fraud schemes.
Among those charged were current and former coaching staff members at Oklahoma State University, the University of Arizona, the University of Southern California, and Auburn. Eric Chemi is here with more. Good to see you, Eric.
Good to see you, Sue.
Lay out, if you could, exactly what this case is about.
Okay, so there's actually two different things going on. You'll see there's 3 documents that they filed, and in one set, it's about bribing coaches to get the college athletes to pick certain financial advisors and agents when they leave college and go pro. The other version is when they're coming into college, paying the right families to get them to pick certain schools because those schools are sponsored by Adidas, let's say.
Why would the coaches risk doing something like this?
Well, coaches make a lot of money in college, not just the head coaches, which we know make millions of dollars. The assistant coaches can make hundreds of thousands of dollars. And in a lot of cases, an assistant coach's job isn't really to coach. You're there to recruit. That is your job. So you got to get these players in the door.
That's a good point. What about the companies? Adidas is named in this particular suit for some things that they are alleged to have done.
One of their employees is, but not Adidas,
not
the
Adidas,
company.
the company.
Right.
But one of their employees. What's going to happen on that front? Why would an employee do that? It endangers the brand. It endangers themselves.
So this employee, he's the head of global sports marketing for basketball at Adidas, but he has a long track record as a high school basketball coach in New York City. So he's well known, knows athletes, knows the pipeline. And if you're Adidas, you're doing $100 million deals for some of these colleges, like Louisville and Miami. Those are 2 of the 10 biggest college deals in the country. So you want the best kids going to these schools that you've already given millions of dollars for because it gets your name out there during March Madness. We know how big those ratings are.
Oh, absolutely. Even here in our studio.
Exactly.
Thanks, Eric, very much.
Sue.
Eric Chemi. Still ahead, the rise of the robots. Are you better off having machines pick stocks and invest your money? Don't look now, but shares of General Motors are close to an all-time high. It is the latest indication that Wall Street is warming up to the game plan CEO Mary Barra has put in place to transform the country's largest automaker. Phil LeBeau has more on why GM is finally connecting with investors.
After years of being seen as a symbol of Detroit and the perception American automakers cannot adjust to a changing world, GM is now viewed by some as the company to watch in a rapidly changing auto industry. In fact, Deutsche Bank says GM's burgeoning mobility business is too big to ignore. That mobility business includes Cruise Automation, which GM bought last year. It's now testing self-driving cars in California. Meanwhile, General Motors is expanding its car share startup Maven, and it still retains a stake in Lyft, which is steadily cutting into Uber's dominance in the growing rideshare industry. Throw in more than 7 million OnStar subscribers, and you see why GM appears ready to shift with consumers when they start renting or sharing cars and trucks instead of buying them. Make no mistake, GM's primary business of building and selling cars is still where the company makes its profits, which remain strong.
But Wall Street sees the real payoff for the auto industry coming years from now, when electric and autonomous drive vehicles dramatically change how we get around. And increasingly, investors believe General Motors will be driving that change. Phil LeBeau, Nightly Business Report, Chicago.
Higher ticket prices help sales at Carnival, and that's where we begin tonight's market focus. The world's largest cruise operator also said its better-than-expected results were helped by a rise in onboard spending. The company raised the low end of its full-year profit forecast and also noted the impact from Hurricane Harvey would cut into its results. Carnival also said many of its ships, though, are back in business following the storms.
There are a number of ports that have been temporarily impacted, 5 that people frequent often on cruise ships, but there are over 40 ports that are up and operating, and of course all of our own destinations also. We have private islands and other destinations are operating in all the ports in Mexico. So there's plenty of places to go. We have over 20 ships right now in the Caribbean sailing full.
Carnival shares rose almost 3% to 65.32. Axovent Sciences says its experimental Alzheimer's treatment was not effective in improving patients' cognitive functions during a trial study. The company plans to see if the drug works in treating other neurodegenerative diseases. Axovent's CEO said the stakes remain high in finding an Alzheimer's treatment, but that the company is up to the challenge.
Over the last 14 years, not a single drug has been approved for Alzheimer's disease. In fact, there have been more than 125 consecutive failed trials for Alzheimer's disease. So we knew this was a risky place to be in, but this is one of those areas, you just can't let the fear of failure, of losing a battle deter you from entering the war.
But shares cratered nearly 74% to $6.33. Hurricane Harvey dented same-store sales at Darden restaurants, and the company warned there may be more pain ahead. Despite reiterating its full-year outlook for earnings and revenue growth, the owner of Olive Garden said the impact from Hurricane Irma could cause results to disappoint this quarter. The shares fell more than 6% to $77.71. And American Express is raising its quarterly dividend 9% to 35 cents a share. The yield on that stock is just under 1.5%. American Express shares were slightly higher, ending the day at $88.69. Technology is taking over the investment industry, and that means an increasing number of decisions are being made by machines for both retail investors as well as hedge funds. Leslie Picker is in London at the third largest hedge fund in the world, Man Group.
2, This looks like your typical guitar lesson, but it's taking place inside Man Group, the world's third largest hedge fund, at 1 o'clock on a Tuesday. The student, he leads investment strategy for their quant fund. The word quant means a hedge fund strategy that is reliant upon computers to trade. Many of their employees are mathematicians building algorithms. To clear their heads, they go to the music room. Man Group invests about $40 billion as part of its quant strategy. They're one of the earliest adopters of quant, starting 30 years ago. Lately, there's been a resurgence in quant. The amount of assets have more than doubled since 2009 to $1 trillion. The top 5 hedge funds in the world largely employ these computer-based strategies. And last year, when non-quant funds were bleeding assets, quant funds brought in $13 billion. Even retail money managers like BlackRock and State Street have been using more technology for their products. That just adds to the competitive pressure for a firm like Man. To get ahead, they've been focused on the new frontier of quant, machine learning. The firm's chief investment officer says with machine learning, the computers don't need to be told how or what to trade. They just do it themselves.
A good example might be if you want machines to buy on dips, then it's sometimes quite hard to describe a dip perfectly, but the machine learning world will just look for patterns of what dips look like and what happened next after a dip. And it'll be much less where we set the strategy for it, much more that it learns from the data that you present.
Rattray said the use of machine learning has helped deliver returns above and beyond that of traditional quant. The firm has been employing the strategy for 3 years now and partnered with the University of Oxford to stay ahead of the curve. Meanwhile, it's clear that the combination between technology and human investment will only become more intertwined over time.
A good computer will always beat a good human at chess, but a good human with a good computer will beat a computer most of the time at chess. It's sort of the same even today in discretionary investing. If you try to do everything manually, you are going to get beaten by people who use quant technology to help their discretionary process.
But finding coders, recruiting them from the Googles and the Facebooks of the world can be a challenge, and having the best coders are critical for quant fund returns. It's worth keeping them happy with a music lesson during the day. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Leslie Picker, London.
So is it a good thing that technology is playing an even bigger role in investing your money? Ben Johnson joins us now to talk about it. He's director of ETF research at Morningstar. Ben, good to see you. Welcome back.
Sue, thanks for having me.
You think that technology, broadly speaking, has been a positive for investors. Why?
It's absolutely been a positive, and it's been an unmistakable positive to the extent that advances in information and investment technology have driven down costs for investors. What we know about investing is that every penny that you're able to save on fees and costs is another penny that you're able to reinvest and allow to compound to meet your long-term goals.
Is that the only benefit that you see? I was fascinated by Leslie's report, where the gentleman she was talking to from Man Group said, you don't basically have to program the machine. The machine will learn itself. That's a little frightening to some of us out there, that the machine can learn an algorithm all by itself.
Well, I think these fears are probably overblown in this battle between man and machine when it comes to security selection and portfolio construction. The jury's still out as to whether machines or some sort of partnership between man and machine will do any better than just flesh and blood humans have for years. And what we've seen uniformly is that they've tended to struggle to get the better of their benchmarks, the better of the markets at large. So again, that brings us back to what can we as investors control? We can control our costs. We know nothing about the future, nor what it means for markets. What we know, again, is that every penny we save is another penny that will compound from here into the time that we take that money out of our accounts to meet and invest against our long-term goals. So man versus machine, honestly, who knows? And there's an arms race going on, which, if anything, ensures mutually assured destruction amongst all of the various participants who are trying to outsmart one another and outprogram one another.
As an individual investor, should you, do you think, actively seek out an investment firm or a money manager or a hedge fund that utilizes quant technology and technology to a large extent?
I think individual investors should remain firmly focused on those things that are a bird in hand, those things that they can control with a high degree of certainty, which really almost begins and ends with costs and with fees. And what we've seen without a doubt, again, is that over the course of decades, advances in technology have driven down investment costs to the point that now you can invest in a broadly diversified U.S. stock market index fund for as little as $3 on a $10,000 investment in a given year. That is inarguably a huge positive for all investors of all sizes.
All right, we'll leave it there, Ben. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ben Johnson with Morningstar. Well, machines are also transforming Madison Avenue and redefining the future of advertising. Julia Borston reports tonight from Adweek, where the technology that's changing marketing is front and center.
No technology will transform advertising in the next few years as much as artificial intelligence, making marketing messages customized and interactive.
Hi there.
Today's startup Ventana unveiled a hologram designed to interact with consumers in stores and malls. Co-founder and COO Ben Conway gave us a sneak peek at the hologram named Julie.
Julie, I'm hungry.
That's a good one. Give me 1 second. If you're looking for a sit-down meal, head to the Italian restaurant on 2 for their signature pasta dish.
But not all artificial intelligence is so futuristic. 50% of all marketing leaders are already using AI for things like ad targeting and placement, with marketers surveyed by Salesforce for a report out in June saying their AI use will grow more than 50% over the next 2 years.
But artificial intelligence certainly isn't foolproof. Both Facebook and Google have recently been in the news for the failures of AI, such as racist and anti-Semitic ad targeting terms, or their failure to identify and pull down violent and extremist content. That's why both companies are investing more in human oversight. Just this past Friday, Facebook announced it's doubling its team focused on election integrity.
The technology, when you see issues like we're seeing with Facebook and Google, the technology's gotten ahead of the human ability to be able to bring those back into what culture and society wants.
But Facebook and Google are also counting on AI to better target ads and drive their growth. Thanks to AI-driven ads on Facebook's Messenger and WhatsApp, one analyst estimates the two platforms have a potential of $20 billion in revenue over the next 3 to 5 years. One example, just last week, Fandango released a ticket-buying messenger bot for friends to plan trips to the movies. And to tackle that all-important brand safety issue, startup Zephyr places ads next to appropriate content on YouTube, using what it calls unsupervised and supervised AI systems, which have people review videos to inform the algorithm. One thing's for sure, with AI powering the likes of this dragon, the better marketers can use their technology to understand who people are and what they want, the more valuable and entertaining brand messages will be for consumers. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Julia Borston at Advertising Week in New York.
Coming up, a new worry for small business owners. In the wake of the Equifax breach, millions of Americans are concerned that their personal information was stolen. Small business owners are worried as well. And last week, a class action lawsuit was brought on their behalf. Andrea Day has our story.
If you're a business, there really is no system to be able to check to see whether or not it's been a victim.
A new worry for small businesses after the latest Equifax breach.
Small businesses remain kind of unaware that they're a frequent target and really viewed as low-hanging fruit by cyber criminals.
And unlike consumers, according to attorney Jason Doss, there's no way for a business to check to see if their data has been stolen. And the free credit reports we all get come at a cost.
Small businesses have really been, up to this point, sort of the forgotten class of folks who have been harmed.
So Doss filed a class action suit, hoping to protect America's 28 million small businesses.
Lines of credit could be opened in the name of the business. There could be fake tax returns filed.
And he says most rely on loans based on the owner's credit worthiness that could now be at risk.
We're talking about Equifax, who is sort of they're responsible for determining who gets loans and who doesn't get loans.
Equifax tells us, quote, "We cannot comment on pending litigation, but we remain focused on helping our customers as well as their employees and consumers to navigate this situation."
Small businesses, I think, they're just now starting to realize that this breach may impact them.
Neil Feather is president of SiteLock, a cybersecurity company specializing in helping small businesses.
About 80% of attacks are targeted at companies with fewer than 100 employees. What attackers will do is, instead of compromising one large enterprise like an Equifax, they can get the same impact by attacking 1,000 or 10,000 unprotected small businesses that they would with a lot more work to attack a well-protected enterprise.
And he says that confidential info can wind up for sale right away on the dark web.
About half of small businesses that get breached will go out of business in the first 6 months.
So what do you do if you're a small business owner? Experts say the best way to protect yourself is to just cough up the cash now and pay for those credit reports. Find out what's happening as soon as you can, because being prepared will help protect you from any new attacks. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Andrea Day.
And that does it for Nightly Business Report tonight. I'm Sue Herrera. Thanks for joining us. Have a great evening. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.